So Tucker Carlson has dared set foot in Canada, and the Liberals are obviously having a complete meltdown about this. And why would they be having a meltdown? Well, it's largely just politics as usual, but also stuff like this. Tucker Carlson tells Canadians, you should dislike and resist Justin Trudeau and his government to the maximum extent of your ability. And you know what? We're on it. And we've got more people joining every day. And I've got video of Tucker here to show you. But first, I just want to say that an interesting part of Canada's descent from respected status internationally, and perhaps even our descent out of first world status, if we continue on our current trajectory. But an interesting part of this is that Canada is now interesting at all. Canadian politics have been more or less boring for decades, even to Canadians. And I think that for anybody outside of Canada, Canadian politics have been a fairly reliable sedative. And that changed with Justin Trudeau. At first, the leftists of the international press were absolutely mesmerized by Trudeau's impeccable hair and teeth, and by his, current year woke platitudes. It's exactly what they wanted to hear. But by 2020, things had changed. His corruption, for one, was hard to ignore. Of course, the blackface thing, well, that's a bit of a no-no, especially for a world leader. And, his cringy costumes and weird exhibitionist behavior, it had all conspired to turn him into something more of a clown. He wasn't the cool kid anymore. And then COVID hit. And this was an opportunity to go from Liberal Canada's national himbo to then Canada's embarrassingly overprotective mother figure. And then, as resistance to his draconian measures increased, Canada's tough but fair patriarch, while actually behaving like Canada's emotionally unstable and insecure stepfather. And so Canada became more politically interesting than I think anybody ever expected it to. And not in a good way. If it were a TV show, it'd be called The Real Housewives of Westmount. And after 8 years of Trudeau, what do we have? We have crushing debt, a disintegration of our healthcare system, housing crisis, mass immigration pushing our infrastructure to the brink, unheard of political and cultural division, international ridicule, of course, and an illegitimate invocation of the Emergencies Act over a peaceful protest. So yes, thanks to Trudeau and those who voted Liberal, the world has taken an interest in Canada. And some even just can't bring themselves to look away. Yeah, car crashes are like that. And one who's been watching from afar in shock and horror at what's happened to this once prosperous, pacific, and above all, sensible nation is Tucker Carlson. And he decided to pay us a little visit. And like any true friend will, he came to tell us the truth. So let's hear what he had to say.
You should dislike and resist Justin Trudeau and his government to the maximum extent of your ability. But before you do that, you should just laugh at him until you can't breathe. Seriously. The guy's like, he's showing up for a costume party when no one else is. There's no costume party, and there's Justin Trudeau. Like speaking as some sort of moral voice. Weird little cross-dresser. So anyway, that's my first piece of advice.
Now, because this isn't the CBC and I want to be factual, I'm going to say there is absolutely no evidence yet that Justin Trudeau is a cross-dresser.
Your rights remain the same because you were born with them, because you are not a slave, you're a human being, and you have inherent dignity because God made you. That's just a fact. And if they're taking those rights away piecemeal and doing so in the name of public safety, even as they make the public sphere much more dangerous, which they have, in case you haven't noticed, Canada has a lot more violent crime now than it did 20 years ago. Have you noticed? Of course you have. You live here. And if they're telling you you can't defend yourself against that crime, we're going to disarm you, you can't protect your life or your family, and you're like, oh yeah, it's for the public safety, it's just not a big deal. These are weapons of war. No, they're weapons of self-defense, which you need and deserve as a free person, not a slave. And then they're telling you you can't complain about it.
So you can say your rights are God-given, you can say they're natural rights. I don't really care, whichever way. I still want them.
Subsidizing the media to the point where all of your big media outlets, which are disgusting, are state media because they're taking state cash. Do you watch CBC? I do, occasionally. I can turn in any hour of the day and I will learn that I am racist for driving an SUV and not being trans. That's the whole schedule of CBC programming. But interpret that. That's not woke. Oh, it's woke. I hate the woke crap. It doesn't mean anything. They hate you. That's what they're saying. They're saying that you are bad. That's exactly what they're saying. Don't lie to yourselves. That's all I'm saying.
You know, I got to give them credit. Actually willing to watch the CBC to see just how biased it is. In Canada, we know how tough that is.
The first thing that you need to do before changing anything in your country is to change everything about your heart. You have to be ready for a contest where the stakes are existential, which they are. And with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Well, Trudeau's not going to like that. He wants us all to, smoke weed and get hooked on fentanyl so we won't notice what he's doing. And, it goes without saying, obviously, the Liberals are having a meltdown over this.
What do you make of the fact that there is an audience for it and for their perspective?
Well, as I said in French, the extreme right politics, don't ask the question if it's coming to Canada. It's already here. And they're bringing it.
And I'll tell you what, if these guys and their dear leader, Justin Trudeau, brought in a bunch of far-left lunacy from American universities and decided to try and run a country with it, well then I, for one, am not opposed to a little bit of common sense being imported as well. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.